The eagle, the dragon, and the bear, oh my, and the crooks from OPEC. What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard. It is Bubba's Bottom Line, and here we are. Markets were relatively flat last week. Not a lot of excitement, not a lot going on. I think we saw action that we expected. I don't see anything to get overly concerned about, nor do I see anything to get overly excited about. I think what you really saw was the markets continuing to churn near the top end of the range. But of course, when we look at the bigger picture, what are we starting to see now? We have a major divergence between the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is really not an industrial average anymore, but that's what it's called, and the other indices. You've got, at one extreme, you've got the Dow that is barely up, and the other extreme, you've got the NASDAQ and the Russell making new to all-time highs. Now, that does make sense in one point of view, is because the Russell is more of an American exchange with not as much exposure globally. So those companies are doing very well. But again, I think what we're really seeing here is the ending of the bull market. Now again, it doesn't mean it's going to end tomorrow. I want to be clear about that. But this is the type of typical action for the end. We're getting very jittery. You're seeing some very big moves up. I mean, you're watching a stock like Netflix that is just going bananas. You're seeing, Tesla have wild swings. You're seeing some of the others have swings. So to me, it looks like, again, we're coming towards the end, but we're not predicting the end. We're just saying this is something to be on the alert for, that this is the typical type of action when a market is starting to build in another top. If you remember, January 29th, when we made the blow-off top the last time, you remember what happened. And again, I can't say that this is it yet, and I'm certainly not going to try to predict it. I'm just saying to you that this is to be something to be concerned and look at, and we'll create some opportunity, and that's what we'll be looking for, is how to take best advantage of the opportunity. But you've got a lot of things going on. You had bonds, which have been relatively flat near the upper end of the recent range, but in a major downtrend. And interest rates are now hovering just under 2.9% in the 10-year. We're looking for those to explode to well into the threes, and of course that is still our black swan event, which takes us to the dollar and what's going on with the dollar. The dollar tried to break out the upside last week over 95, did pull back, but this is, again, just another buying opportunity in our opinion. And we still believe that the black swan event will be the dollar with the higher interest rates, because one thing we can see for sure is that central banks and the Fed and the ECB are totally clueless and have no idea of what's going on and how to get out of this mess in which we created, which is why we continue to see them do nothing, leaning towards the dovish side, which does keep money flow into the overall markets, because again, we go back for the chase for yield. There's only one place to go, is the equity markets, and I think that is something that you have to continue to look at. I think that there's a lot of things that we're starting to see here, including a lot of dissension from the ranks and some from the major companies. The first was Google to talk about their AI and not wanting to help the government. Now you've got Microsoft, talking about illegal aliens, and I don't really understand why we're trying to get involved in this when. Why don't we just follow the rules of the rules of the road, so to speak, and where we are? I mean, just because we did it this way before, what is wrong with going by the laws the way that they're written? I never understood that, but of course, the lobbyists and all the people that benefit so much financially, which is the minority off of these things, continue to fight and work on it. Of course, think about it. Everybody who's got a financial edge here is the ones who are fighting the hardest, which is the politicians that get elected, is the lobbyists, which keep the things going, and that ties into the trade wars and everything else that's going on right now. Now, you're starting to see this tit-for-tat tariff thing going back and forth. Let's be clear about one thing. All right? The United States is the strongest economically. We are the strongest militarily. We are the strongest in every way, shape, and form. We are the most developed nation. We do not necessarily need others, and it will not have such a dramatic price increase effect on what we do because, again, we go back to the price discovery model. You know, notice how price discovery comes in everything. If goods and services get too expensive, they're not going to be bought, which means that prices are going to have to come down. But at the end of the day, there is no doubt in my mind that this whole big trade war, tariffs talk is going to resolve itself. I mean, you know, it's the old story. Why can't we all just get along? But I believe that President Trump has a valid point as to what he's trying to get done. I think it's about time that somebody stood up and said, enough. I don't want any more of these bad backward deals that have only a problem and cause us issues and make it better for everybody else. I think it's time we got into free and fair trade, and I don't believe there should be tariffs on anything going anywhere. I don't believe there should be quotas going anywhere. But let's think about it, and the people that keep coming up among who's going to suffer the worst is American farmers. Now, first of all, unless we're going to stop eating, all right, there's going to be a demand for wheat, soybeans, corn, cattle, hogs, everything, cotton. And you keep hearing the lobbyists trying to pinpoint stories of where it's going to be a problem. Well, from my perspective, and I look at corn and wheat and soybean prices and all the agricultural prices all the time, from my standpoint, we're not much higher today based on, first of all, based on almost raw numbers. I mean, in the year 2000, corn was about $2. So, and if you add the $1.50 of ethanol, that's $3.50. Today, it's just around $3.50. So you tell me how much that this trade war effect is having on it all. I believe that you're seeing, again, the wrong people making the big ordeal over nothing, and that's because they have financial benefit from it. Okay? You know, we've got a government that's been heavily involved in farming and causing all kinds of grief among farmers. Okay? So now we've got somebody who's actually standing up for us saying, enough, and we're going to make it right. And I think that's really a better story at the end of the day. Could it be painful in the next few weeks, next couple months? Sure, it could be. I don't really think so. I think that actually, when I look at the grain markets, I see an outstanding opportunity to buy. I mean, the soybean market, just for example, it's no surprise to me that they had a big sell-off. We had benchmarked the level 10 for months and said that if it broke 10, it was going way down. It doesn't matter. You can blame it on the trade wars if you want. I think that's a crock. That's just, again, that's my opinion, not necessarily a fact, but I believe it to be factual. I don't believe it has anything to do with anything. And I think that's really the bigger issue, that we continue to have. Notice to the big people that are making the big deal, politicians, lobbyists, and people like that. Why? Because they get benefit from all this. So again, the equity markets will always tell you the real story of what is going on. And the equity markets have either stabilized or are going higher. So in my eyes, that's just saying that there is not a big ordeal here. Because if there was, you would see that falling, okay? So, you know, I think that, you know, we can't worry about making such a big deal about all this. I think the bigger deal to make is what's going wrong and what's happening in this economy. As we continue to mount debt and as we continue to ignore everything, I think that is a bigger problem. And I think that becomes the issue of the day, is how are we going to settle and solve this debt bomb? All right? How are we going to deal with the crooks from OPEC? Those would be more of a concern than anything else that I see. And I don't see the debt bomb getting settled anytime soon. I would venture to say that a lot of this debt's going to get wiped out, okay, and going to cause another problem. You know, we just had the bank stress tests again. Now, this is my opinion again as well. But I would love to get in there and see those stress tests myself. I'd like to see what we're doing, because in my opinion, there is no way that these banks have enough in reserve to cover the loans they have outstanding. And just to be clear, because they have the ability and by law can lend out, I guess it's 10 to 1 of what they're holding in, supposedly holding in reserve, okay? Supposedly, I say, okay? So if they have that 10 to 1, then they're, even at that rate, they are still creating new money, still devaluing your currency and your dollar. So as we look at what's going on with the dollar, yes, the dollar is now railing, but when you continue to create more dollars and you can continue to lend out money that you don't have, that becomes a problem. And of course, you're seeing that effect play out more in some of the other areas, but you're seeing, will China devalue the yuan some more? Now the yuan, or the renminbi, does not free float. Okay, it's controlled by the government. Surprise, China is controlling their own currency. Surprise, China is doing all their other things. Again, are we surprised by any of this? And that's where I think that everybody's trying to make the mistake. And the problem here is that China is the second biggest economy, and China is no longer a developing nation. Okay, China is now a true competitor or whatever of the United States, but not anywhere near where we are. They're only really good at taking intellectual properties and holding up American companies. But when we look at the bigger picture, will China try to liquidate the U.S. debt that they're holding? And I think that's almost comical, because are you going to try to dump somebody's debt that you're not going to get any value for, and that just like you do with your yuan and your renminbi, that you can devalue and make things worthless if you choose to do so? Well, don't you think that the United States can do the same? So I think that when you look at the whole situation, this is why it's got to work out, and why it will work out, because there's too many intertwined things globally now. All right, so you need to have things work properly, and of course, I believe that it will work properly, and I think that's really what we're looking for, and that's really what this is all about. Again, as soon as we can get rid of the graft and the lobbyists and the people that are fighting for the capital and the votes, okay, and instead of worrying about their constituents and worrying about the masses or the middle class, I think then we will be on the right track. And I think that's where we're headed today. That's where we are headed with President Trump at the helm. In the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horowitz. We're going to stop out here for a break, and we'll be back with more of Bubba's Bottom Line right after the break. And of course, as you know, we have a high school investing program, highschoolinvesting.com. And of course, we're trying to go into our 9th year, of which I have funded it myself until recently when we started to use Patreon. We're very close to not being able to continue. We do need some help capital-wise, and if you'd like to help us out, go to Patreon, patreon.com/Bubba Trading. That's patreon.com/Bubba Trading. And don't forget to catch The Bubba Show every day at libertytalk.fm from 4 to 5 Eastern. And if you're interested in my media hits this week, you can catch me tonight, Sunday night, on CNBC Asia. That's 357 if you have DirecTV. I don't know any other number. You can catch me tomorrow on RFD TV at 12:15 Eastern. Same on Tuesday, 12:15 Eastern. And Wednesday, you can catch me on Fox Business at 4 o'clock Eastern. And there may be some other miscellaneous. Anyways, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line right now. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horowitz. And of course, I think we beat the trade wars into sublivium. I think that we now have some things happening around, and I think that you've got the dollar dilemma, but I think the bigger dilemma now is the crux from OPEC. Okay, now this to me, if you take a look at what happened on Friday, if you look at the price action on Friday, to me this was almost a manipulated short squeeze that was almost planned perfectly by OPEC. Now, markets have a way of trying to anticipate what is going to happen and what is going to come out and what we're going to see. And I think the street was expecting a cut or a rise in production of 1 million barrels a day. And I think when you saw oil start to fall, that was people over anticipating that. And of course, Friday, when they announced that they were going to only add in 600,000 barrels a day, and there were some issues between the other nations, oil went crazy. It had one of the biggest updates we've seen in a long time, up about $4 or so, which is about 7%, 6%. That was a massive short squeeze. And if you knew what you were doing, and again, I have no belief that they do not know what they're doing. I would like to see what their futures accounts look like. But if you have any idea how the markets work and how they function, this was a major short squeeze. And if you were prepared for it, and if you engineered it, which I believe that they did, then you had some big coin to be able to benefit from, because you leaked out, you put out information to put the street in one direction, and then you came out with something completely different. This was a surprise, and I don't imagine, you know, certain things are conspiracy and are coincidence, and certain things are truly a surprise. I don't believe that this was truly a surprise. I think this was a planned surprise. Again, just my opinion, just one of those things that I look at and that I think about and see. And, you know, I mean, this could create and cause a major problem. Now, I believe that oil is now even a better sell than I thought it was before. I think this last short squeeze just squeezed out of the shorts, and I think that we're going to go rapidly a lot lower. Now, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be Tuesday, but I think here now is the opportunity that we're going to see a movement much lower. And I think this even clears the deck even faster to let this happen. So we'll see how that trades out and where we go from there. But I think that when you're looking at the whole way the whole thing played out, I think again, I believe deep in my heart, my opinion again, that this was totally contrived and manipulated and had nothing to do with what was going to actually happen. And I think you're going to see that there's going to be even more put out anyways, no matter what they say. Again, this goes back forever as they have continued to beat on the United States and everybody else with the way that they do business. So I have no doubt in my mind that there'll be something more coming from here. But I think, you know, I think one of the things you have to look at is the coming recession. That, you know, again, I'm not so sure, in my own opinion, that we've ever left the recession that we were in originally. I think in many parts of the country you did, but I think in a lot of parts of the country you did not. I think a lot of parts of the country are still suffering and never really truly recovered. Yes, I know we've got a lot of jobs available, but the jobs are not paying a lot of money. Again, this is one of the things that we always have to understand. You know, when somebody gets a job, and my daughter is going through the job process right now. She graduated college, and she's getting some nice offers, and those she's going to get reasonable living wages for her, which is great. But the average guy that lost his job or had problems, you know, during the collapse, has never replaced it, is not going to be making anywhere near what she's making. But the key, more importantly, is the benefits. The key, more importantly, is the collapsing of the Social Security system and the pension system. Because again, we've got so many people coming into that retirement age that there's going to be some major issues here with these systems and with these problems. And I think that's something that we have to be focused on as we look forward, because I think that's where you're going to find the biggest problem. Now, I think another thing that we're looking at, just from a side note, is the collapse or the melting down of gold. Now, as you may or may not know, the big commercials are generally almost always short gold futures. And of course, I've seen now, based on the commitment of Treasury report, one of their biggest short positions ever. So they obviously believe and are trying to push gold a lot lower. And of course, when you get in something that is more thinly traded and you've got more money, you've got the ability to try to manipulate and push around some of these things. And I think that's also what you're seeing in some of the cryptocurrencies right now. You know, we've seen a pretty serious meltdown here, which is perfect fodder for the pundits and for all the people that said it's a bubble, it's garbage, it's no good. Well, I'm here to tell you that, look, I'm slightly involved. And I had not made one dime on the cryptocurrencies. I'm a net loser at the moment, but they are real. They're going to be a good spot to be invested in. in a small way for everybody. I think that that's something that we always want to make sure. Again, we don't want to overinvest into anything. And I think that this is something that we can invest in a small way. But you're going to see the push down from all of these people that have bashed it since. I think you take this as a potential buying opportunity. I think that that it gives you an opportunity to get in here. And I think that's one of the things that we're looking for. And again, we've got a lot of things happening, and you continue to read about some of the hacks and other things. And again, this is no different than what happened in the internet bubble. Okay, now we might have already seen the collapse of the internet bubble so far, and we may be now starting to go through that bottoming process to move our way back up. Again, I'm not urging anybody to run out and buy. I'm saying if I were going to get into this space, this is the time I would put in a very small amount of money. Again, never put yourself in any form of investment. Never put yourself in position to be damaged greatly by an investment. Investment capital has to be capital that you can afford to lose. Okay, that if you can be wrong, or you can afford to hold. Remember, if you put in capital that you can't afford, and you're putting in next week's car payment or next month's mortgage payment, you're always going to be forced to sell out at the bottom. And that's one of the things that creates bottoms in markets, is that people are forced to sell out. So you have right now, we've got the markets, especially the Russell, spiking higher each and every day. All right. You've got the Dow holding steady to going lower on a daily basis. I mean, the Dow just came off of an 8-day in a row losing streak and ended up on Friday. But this divergence is going to, if you think about this as a big rubber band, it's going to snap back. Now, either the Dow is going to start flying up and catch up, and the others will come back a little bit, or the others are going to come back down. Now, the Dow is not a very reliable index in general. I mean, it's only 30 stocks, and of course they took GE out of it, which is the right thing to do, but it's really not an industrial index anymore. However, it does have some representation, and there are some pretty big names in there that could be signaling that there's a problem. And I think this is what you have to watch very closely over the next couple of weeks, which is why we want to be neutral and observe, because we want to be prepared to jump on it. Okay, we want to be prepared to partake in whether the move is a breakout to the upside and we are on to our next up leg, which I do not believe that will be the case, but I will be prepared for that. Or if this is going to be another meltdown and where we make lows and take out lows. And I believe more likely that to be the case, that we're going to go down and make lows versus continue on this ascent higher. Now, again, remember, markets will go up year over year, just not every year. And of course, we've been this is, I think, the second longest bull market in history. And this is one that has been obviously the least loved because of the way that it's built. And of course, this is something that, we talk about this all the time. I think the markets are headed toward recession, but the Fed won't be able to tell us this for 10 years from now. And 10 years from now, I don't need to know it. I will already have lived through it. And I think that's, again, this is the problem with economists that have no clue. This is the problem with people that think only in philosophy and in theory versus what is happening today. We need to know what's happening today. We may not be around in 10 years, okay? So we need to be prepared for what's happening here. And one final note, I am not a gun owner, okay? However, I have no problem with people going through the normal process of buying a gun legally and doing all things. And I see now that there's, I think New Jersey wants to charge a 2,400% tax on buying a gun. And I go, what happened to the right to bear arms in this country? One of the things that I always believe is that the criminals are getting the guns, okay? The criminals are getting the guns. So do we need to take people that are law-abiding citizens that want to have gun ownership and penalize them? Because we all know, wherever you go, Chicago, the murder capital of the world, all the criminals have the guns. They've got the AK-47s. They've got all those things. So do we really want to torture law-abiding citizens and try to overcharge them? I mean, this tax process has become totally ridiculous in a lot of things. I mean, in vaping products and tobacco and so on. I mean, again, Just a thought. But we're going to come back with one of my real thoughts and something that's been irritating me for quite a while. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, and we'll be back with my commentary after this short break. Again, a reminder, if you want to help us out with our high school investing program, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Bubba Trading. Again, we're just trying to, put together and help financially literate our high school kids and let them get into the world so that we don't have these problems years from now. And also don't forget to catch the Bubba Show every day at 4 to 5 Eastern at LibertyTalk.fm. And just a quick rundown, if you want to catch my TV spots this week, tonight, 6:05 Eastern Time on CNBC Asia. That's 357 on 357 on DirecTV. I don't know the station anywhere else. And tomorrow and Tuesday, 12:15 Eastern, RFD TV. And Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern, Fox Business After the Bell. Let's get back to my commentary. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horowitz, and of course, every week I give you a little bit of what I'm thinking and what irritates me. And I tell you, we opened up a little bit on the trade wars, but what really bothers me is the way that the commentators handle it. And look, I know we have news stations that are left. I know we have news stations that are right, and we have some that try to be in the middle. And I watch and I listen to these people commentate, and I listen to Neil Cavuto talk about the trade wars. And what I've seen here is total fear. And they only bring on guests that bring on more fear about the trade wars. I have emailed them and tweeted to him and said, hey, why don't you let the other side speak? And I never get to hear the other side. All I hear is the fret and the guys coming on with the sweat dripping down their brow. Oh my God, the world is coming to an end. What are we going to do? Help me, Mr. Wizard. I don't know. And I don't like reporting like that. I don't like directed reporting to only tell one side of the story. Let's let both sides tell the story. This is the same. The news has become just like the markets. They're not free anymore. They're always directed and manipulated by somebody else. And quite frankly, every time I watch, I work out in the morning, I'm watching CNBC. Again, they're bringing out the fear. Obviously, they're doing it for ratings. But wouldn't it be nice to have the actual news reported, both sides of the equation, so that we as Americans and we as viewers could make up our own mind if we thought that it was a good deal or a bad deal, instead of having person after person come on. Now, I know certain things to be factual, and I have actually, I do work for all the networks, and I have actually passed spots because they want me to say something that I don't believe in. Okay, so what they're really doing is they're searching for somebody who's going to create this fear or this mess, and to me, that also pisses me off. All right. Again, what is wrong with the truth? I'm not Jack Nicholson. I can handle the truth. I mean, what is wrong with putting it out what it is and letting the markets help you decide and letting the human people decide versus trying to direct everybody to believe that the world is coming to an end? Chicken little, the world is coming to an end, because at the end of the day, the world is not coming to an end. I wish we'd get better reporting across the board. I'm tired of, again, I understand the left and the right controversy. That's a story for another day. I mean, I could talk for days on that. But when it comes to specific issues right now, which trade wars in play and oil's in play, if you notice, you only get people talking about oil that think it's going to the moon as well. And again, I'm not telling them what they think, but I'm saying, where is the other side of the trade? And I have sent emails to all of them saying, hey, let me present the other side. They don't want the other side. They want to create the fear and havoc. Unlike, we want to just tell it like it is, and we can handle the truth. And this is Todd Bubba Horowitz. And as always, I thank you so much for being a part of Bubba's Bottom Line. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we will see you back here next week on Bubba's Bottom Line, and tomorrow for Bubba's Daily Update. Todd Bubba Horowitz, Bubba's Bottom Line. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much.